Okay, since I just came off a video where I pretty much pissed off everybody on the internet by telling them that a non-neck turn gun can shoot just as good as a neck turn gun, figured I'll get into another one that's a tiny bit controversial. And I'm going to teach you something about bore sighting that getting on paper that somebody's going to learn something from. I'll be surprised if you come away with this without learning something. But we're going to talk about something called PBR, point blank range, or MPBR. That's the newest thing. People drive me crazy because in their wild drive to find relevance, they keep coining stupid ass stuff. So, point blank range is something that shouldn't even exist, but bottom line is, I guess there is a range somewhere between out to maybe 300 yards where some guns will shoot such that you can just hold center of the vitals and pull the trigger. I still say hold a little low in the mid-range, but in study, again, you go on the inner tube and you try to find, and you got people that are saying like, okay, maximum point blank range is from the bottom to the top of an animal's vital section, and then they go on about how maybe a deer is 10 inches and an elk is 14 inches. One of them had the sack to say that moose are super easy because their kill zone's 24 inches tall. So you got a point blank range of 500 yards or something ridiculous. Dumb, 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 dumb. I'm going to use 6 inches as point blank range. What that means is there's going to be a yardage where the bullet rises no more than 6 inches above the line of sight and drops to no more, 3 inches above the line of sight, 3 inches below the line of sight. What that means is, to make it simple, you got a eyeball here, and it's looking at a target. You got a gun down here that you're holding, and it shoots a bullet that goes up through your line of sight, this is where it's critical, and back down, and then continues down, down, down. And let's call this 3 inches, and this out here 3 inches low. So it could be said that your point blank range, if an animal was standing there, would be from right here. You could just hold right on the center line, and all the way through this you got 3 inches high, 3 inches low. So your point blank range area is about 6 inches. Okay? So this video is not really about point blank range. I'm not going to try to explain ballistics to you. This is about bore sighting and perhaps a better way of bore sighting. When I say better, understand, all I'm saying, everybody that's going to ever be watching this has bore sighted a gun. Now, they make these bore sighters. Some of them stick to the end of the gun barrel, presuming that the end of the gun barrel is perpendicular to the line of the bore. You stick it on there with a magnet and it throws up a grid, and you click, click, click. Some of them jam a spud inside the muzzle, which I think is an abomination on the face of the land. There's various ways to affix a fixture to the end of your gun barrel and then get on paper, and they work. I'm not saying they don't work, I just don't stick stuff in the hole. And then you've got actual bore sighting. Bore sighting, we're going to show you here in a second, is looking through the bore and lining up. Now the reason I say that I can give you some information that's going to help you is because perhaps I have a little better way of bore sighting than is common. And I can get a little bit more done. I can get closer to what you want. Because you picture my bullet going like this, line of sight going like this, that crossover point out here where the bullet comes up through the line of sight is useful. I contend that you need to build yourself a bore sighting framework that's easy to carry around that you can just put a dot on, and you set this at that crossover point, which will end up, now when you go out to 100 yards to verify, you'll have to know that closer to the mid-range, you're going to probably be sighting in somewhere around 3 inches. You don't ever sight in right on at 100 yards because the bullet's dropping back through the line of sight, and that shortens up your point blank range, your useful range. So most people are going to sight in somewhere around 3 inches high at 100 yards. If you pick this crossover point as the place to put your sighting in mechanism, and I wrote down some things on here, it doesn't take a 22-250 with an 1.5 offset between the scope and the bore crosses over at 32 yards. A 270, which is pretty common, 27 yards. 30-06, 34 yards. We come on down. Today I happen to be shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor. So this Creedmoor, we're going to cross over. I ran the numbers here. It crosses over at 23 yards. So we're going to take this target stand out. We're going to make this really simple for you. Now, I don't know if I can do this on video or not. I don't know if it's even possible to just quickly do this on video, but I'm going to try. Oh, that doesn't work. Me and my not ever want to rehearse stuff. I don't know if this is going to work or not. But basically we take, now this is a target frame built out of PVC. It's used for tuning arrows. It's not actually designed for what we're doing with it here. It's designed for tuning archery equipment. But it works well for sighting in too. All we've got to do is reach out here, make a dot, and maybe we want to go a little bit more like this because we're looking through that little bore. And we'll set this up so that it's centered in the bore at, what did I say, 23 yards. So 23 yards is going to basically put us real close to 3 inches high at 100. Now we don't have time to go through all of that, but we do have time to show you how this works. We are going to start by taking this apparatus out here by the door so it's ready to go. We'll bring this over and point it down range for you so that you can see what we're doing here. We take, now, time for a little range safety issue here. I'm going to walk down there with the gun on here because there's nobody here. I'm by myself. We're breaking the range rules. But as a bench rest guy, I consider a gun with the bolt out. Come on, you. To be inert. So we're taking the bolt out, we're setting it aside. I'm going to walk this down, then I'm going to circle back around and we're going to line this up in the scope. Then we're going to take a shot, which we won't be able to see. But this gun is inerted by dint of the fact that the bolt is out of it. So I can run out on film and place my target. Just trying to hurry up here, don't want to take the gun out of there. Had to go grab a sandbag here just in case this silly thing blows over. I got out there and it was winding like a mother bear. So now we go through, we look through the bore, find out kind of where we are here. We find that dot in the bore. Might have to put my glasses on, I'm old and blind. Having trouble seeing that dot down there with my naked. There, I see a dot. Now we find it. Man, that little 6.5 bore is tiny. It ain't so easy to find. I think I should have got this lined up ahead of time. Now, because I've got it in there, I'm going to go ahead and dial over the dot and just got the dot centered up in that 6.5 bore, and I'm dialing over to it. See how close we are on the first shot here. We are going to be close because I'm in a hurry. I realize that the camera's running, you guys are stored biff. Don't need to see all this going on. Get this ready to close. Got my glasses on, got my eyeballs on. Well, we're going to call this a success. And I haven't done this a number of times, I'm not surprised. But I am going to go ahead and run on out there and show yous. I can now take this down just to be safe, because now we're going out to 100. All of this becomes moot. I think I've got time to run out there and show you where that hit at this range. And I already did the adjustment. So let's take a look. Okay, so now we can bring this camera back over here, back where we're showing our original picture. We'll show you how we did. This is the adjustable framework, which, as I said, was, I'm going to shut this window, it's cold. I came down here just to whip out this little video, and I didn't dress for it, and now I'm paying for it. So, let me get away from that window a little bit, get the light better. There's what we did. And all I did was, while I was still on camera, just quick and dirty, I just went boop over to here. I can know for an absolute fact now that when I go out to the 100-yard butt, I'm going to probably be, because I know these numbers and I've done this a bunch, I'll probably be 2 to 3 inches high and within an inch of center. The reason that's important is because if you think back to when I was pointed down range, that target butt's looking nice and black down there. What this does is, to those of you who might choose to own a range, you're going to learn about hose bags shooting up your target butts. I say hose bags. They're all your friends. But they're people that don't really care, I guess, or they're friends of friends. If it's a private range, I would hope that. You start bringing it in the public, and you're going to find out that that opens a door that you might not want to have opened. But let's just say that target butt had been hit. The target butt that was in the distance there, that were lined up as my 100-yard butt from this window. It was built out of a wood framework. It was covered. I would put targets on there and leave them there for weeks, months at a time. Built out of 2x4s, and enough people have shot out this window and not bore-sighted correctly that it was getting a pretty bit geekery, which means in Finn, rickety. I say Finn, I don't have Finn, I don't even know what it is, but I've grown up with people saying geekery for rickety. The point is, my target butt had been shot up enough that it was no longer strong. And we had a wind event here just a little while back that just shredded it. I mean, destroyed it. So I spent the last week welding up a frame and hanging up. Again, I'm pointing like it's meaningful. You don't know what's over there, but trust me, it's the window I shoot out of. Doing the whole redneck thing again, gesturing in the direction of that to which I refer. Let's just say that I decided to build it out of steel this time and hang conveyor belting on it and put a nice roof on it, and the target butt down there now is nice. I've been using this though for quite a while because I get people to come out here and they're like, oh, I can be on at 100 yards. And I've bore-sighted. Here's the thing. Let's start with bore-sighters. Loophole makes a bore-sighter that sticks on the end of the bore with a magnet. And you adjust your crosshairs up, you give it a measurement, or don't even have to give it a measurement, from your scope to your bore center line, and it works pretty good. But it presumes that the muzzle of your gun is actually 90 degrees to the bore of the gun, and it presumes that the barrel is straight, which is not true. I've got a 408 Shy-Tac here that's a very expensive gun, and the barrel is bent to the point that it shoots 22 inches. It's not bent. Whether it was a machining process, it's probably bananaed, which helixed, whatever. It's probably crooked because it's not a real common chambering. Coupled with the fact that the guy that built it chambers between centers, drove a nail in both ends and spun it up and threw some threads on it and puked a chamber into it. Bottom line is, it shoots way off from where it bore sights. You bore sight it and it impacts 18 inches away. I had 2 holes in the top roof of my structure from doing that myself, having crooked barrels. Now I index on the center line. This particular gun I'm referring to was never indexed on this to a center line because the guy never reached anything inside, doesn't even know what I'm talking about. But I index my barrels to up and down. So if I get crooked and but bore sighting at 100 yards sometimes can result in a shot being quite a bit high or quite a bit low because barrels are bent. I had a 270 one time that was fluted and it was angled over 27 inches. Had I done it. The way it was done was between centers, so it was only 16 inches off at 100 yards. My point is that if you bore sight at 100 yards, there's going to be times, even though you're centered up on there nice, that barrel's going to be pointed far enough off that you're going to miss. I hit my target frame on the top twice, trying to find that gun that was shooting way high. So I put some holes in the old target frame too. I'm not going to blame it all on everybody else's kids. But suffice it to say 100 yards is not a good... You will shoot up the target frame if you're bore sighting at 100 yards. And you're normal and you do it enough. You bore sight 100 guns, you're going to be off the paper at least sometimes. So I cobbled up this thing just because I was sick of hitting my target frame and using it. You can see it's old, it's got spider webs on it. This works. Getting the bright idea to come in is kind of like I index my bores, all right? When I chamber, that's all covered in earlier videos. When I do that, I find the wobble And when I find the, okay, let me put it another way. When I jig up my barrel through the headstock, which is my way, and I know that I'm going to be jacking it around, I make sure that my clamp point at the chuck end is right smack on the lead, my projected chamber, neck, bullet, lead angle. I want it to be pivoting right on that lead area. Makes it a lot easier to dial this thing in and to straighten out the section ahead of the bullet. I line up my barrel such that I've got a 2 to 3 inch section that the bullet sees. And that means the muzzle sometimes is dead center nuts, sometimes it's a little this and that, and then I index and I chamber to that. But I swivel, I pivot right on that point at which the ogive of the bullet intersects the lead of the chamber. And it makes life easy. Remember my diagram here of how the bullet goes up through the line of sight? This uses that. I figured, why not kill 2 rodents with 1 hammer? Put this right at that intersection point, and you're going to end up right smack in the area you want to be at 100 yards. And the only reason I bring up that, call it what you want, that useful to some people area. I walk through the woods with my gun sighted in at I might not call it point blank range, but it's a known range. I generally sight in mine to be zeroed at 350 yards, and my maximum, or my 100 yard offset's a little more. I don't call that a point blank range. That's just what I like to use. I like to be sighted at 350. And I memorize the number at 100, and I know where I'm at 250, and I just hold a little low in the middle. That's my way, but it doesn't matter. Call it point blank range. The point is, using this intersection point with a portable unit that I can walk out. I just step it out to the intersection point, I hit this dot, and I know I'm right on almost where I want to be, and then I can sight in at 100, I can go to 350 if I want and check it, that's all. But this right here, a portable frame. Now, this is a roll of butcher paper. You can build this. It's got a crossbar down there with a roll of butcher paper on it, a stabilizer here, and some clips around here. You just pull it up for a fresh sheet. Boom! You've got your thing to sight into for bore sighting. So hopefully this will help somebody. Maybe there'll be a couple of thoughts in there that somebody will enjoy. If not, I had fun doing it. Thanks, guys.